Women just don't think strategically, Director Hamilton said, his voice echoing through the conference room as he shook hands with Tyler Mason. That's why we need leaders like you driving our merchandising initiatives. I sat there, stunned, watching my male coworker bask in the glory of presenting my merchandising strategy as his own. The same strategy that had increased our regional sales by 20% over the past quarter. The same strategy I had spent months developing, analyzing consumer behavior patterns, and testing in 3 different markets. My face burned with a mixture of rage and disbelief, but I forced myself to maintain a professional smile. My name is Simone Briggs, and I'm 31 years old. For the past 4 years, I've worked as a merchandising analyst for Gravora Group, one of the largest retail chains in the Southeast. I graduated with honors from Auburn University with a degree in business analytics, and I've always prided myself on my ability to spot market trends before they explode. My cubicle walls were covered with charts, graphs, and consumer data that most people found mind-numbingly boring, but to me, they told stories of opportunity and growth. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was sitting in a conference room in Birmingham, Alabama, watching my career ambitions crumble while Tyler received a promotion that should have been mine. The presentation he had just delivered was flawless, because I had written every single slide, analyzed every data point, and created every recommendation. When our department head had asked for volunteers to develop a new merchandising approach for the upcoming holiday season, I had jumped at the chance. I knew this was my opportunity to prove I was ready for the senior analyst position that had been dangling in front of me for months. Tyler had approached me 3 weeks ago, asking if he could collaborate on the project. I thought he was genuinely interested in learning from my research methods, so I shared everything with him. My consumer surveys, my competitor analysis, my pricing strategies, even my presentation template. He said he wanted to understand my process so he could contribute meaningfully to the project. I was naive enough to believe him. As I watched Director Hamilton announce Tyler's immediate promotion to Senior Merchandising Manager, I felt something cold settle in my chest. This wasn't just about a stolen presentation or a missed promotion. This was about a pattern I had noticed but tried to ignore. The way my ideas somehow became team efforts when they succeeded, but remained solely mine when they needed refinement. The way my contributions were praised in private but rarely acknowledged in public forums. The way promising projects were mysteriously reassigned to male colleagues when they showed real potential. The meeting concluded with enthusiastic congratulations for Tyler, and I knew that speaking up now would only make me look like a sore loser. Growing up in a small town outside Mobile, I learned early that hard work and intelligence would be my tickets to success. My father worked 2 jobs to put me through college, and my mother constantly reminded me that I would need to work twice as hard as men to get half the recognition. I thought she was being overly pessimistic, but sitting in that conference room, I realized she had been preparing me for this exact moment. My relationship with Tyler had always been complicated. When he joined our team 18 months ago, I was assigned to help him get acclimated to our systems and processes. He was charming, well-connected through his fraternity network, and had an MBA from a prestigious university that opened doors mine apparently couldn't. Initially, I respected his educational background and assumed we would make good colleagues. He often asked thoughtful questions about my work, and I appreciated having someone who seemed genuinely interested in the analytical side of retail merchandising. Looking back, I realized those weren't questions born of curiosity. They were intelligence-gathering missions. Tyler had been systematically learning my methods, understanding my sources, and positioning himself to capitalize on my expertise. The collaboration he proposed for the holiday merchandising strategy wasn't collaboration at all. It was theft with extra steps. In the weeks leading up to the presentation, I had noticed subtle warning signs that I dismissed at the time. Tyler started scheduling one-on-one meetings with Director Hamilton, supposedly to discuss strategic vision for our department. He began attending industry conferences that I had recommended, but somehow never received approval to attend myself. He started using phrases and terminology that I had coined in my reports, weaving them into casual conversations as if they were his own insights. The most telling sign was how he handled our planning sessions. Instead of contributing original ideas, He would ask me to elaborate on mine, pushing me to explain every detail of my reasoning. He recorded our meetings, claiming he wanted to review the strategies later to make sure he understood the nuances. I thought he was being thorough. I now realized he was building a script. 3 days before the presentation, Tyler had asked if he could take the lead in delivering our findings to the executive team. He said his presentation skills were stronger and that we would make a better impression with him as the spokesperson. Wanting to be a team player, I agreed, but insisted that he acknowledge my role in developing the core strategy. He assured me that my contributions would be clearly highlighted. Instead, I watched him present my work as his own breakthrough thinking. When Director Hamilton asked about the analytical methodology, Tyler smoothly explained concepts I had spent years mastering. When questioned about market research, he referenced surveys I had designed and conducted. The only time my name came up was when Tyler mentioned that I had provided valuable data support for his strategic vision. As the meeting ended and people filed out, congratulating Tyler on his brilliant work, I felt a shift inside me that I had never experienced before. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow as I sat in my car in the Gravora Group parking lot, trying to process what had just happened. My hands were shaking as I replayed Tyler's presentation, noting every instance where he had claimed credit for my work. The sophisticated consumer segmentation analysis I had developed over months of research became his innovative customer profiling system. The pricing optimization model I had built from scratch was now his strategic value framework. Even the specific terminology I had created to describe our target demographics rolled off his tongue as if he had invented it. The promotion Tyler received wasn't just any promotion. It was the exact position I had been working toward for years. Senior merchandising manager came with a $30,000 salary increase, stock options, and leadership over a team of 12 analysts. More importantly, it was the gateway to the executive track at Gravora Group. Tyler would now oversee the implementation of my strategy, taking credit for its success while I remained in the same role I had held for the past 2 years. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the messages I had received during the meeting. My college roommate Jasmine had texted about a job opening at Sunvale Studios, a rapidly growing retail chain that was making waves in the industry. 3 months ago, I would have dismissed the idea of leaving Gravora Group. But sitting in that parking lot, I realized I had nothing left to lose here. The next morning, I arrived at work early and found Tyler already in his new corner office, speaking loudly on the phone about his merchandising breakthrough. He caught my eye through the glass wall and gave me a thumbs up, as if we shared some inside joke. The casualness of his gesture made my blood boil. He actually seemed to believe that I would be happy to see him succeed with my work. During our departmental meeting that afternoon, Director Hamilton outlined Tyler's new responsibilities and praised his strategic thinking capabilities. He announced that Tyler would be presenting our holiday merchandising plan to the board of directors next month, a presentation that would essentially be my work being showcased at the highest levels of the company. Hamilton then turned to me and said, "Simone, I know you're disappointed not to get the promotion, but I hope you'll support Tyler in his new role. Your data analysis skills will be valuable to his strategic initiatives." The condescending tone in his voice was unmistakable. I was being relegated to the role of Tyler's analytical assistant, supporting his strategic initiatives with my data analysis skills. The message was clear. I was valuable enough to do the work, but not valuable enough to receive credit for it. That evening, I submitted my application to Sunvale Studios, along with a portfolio that included detailed documentation of every project I had worked on at Gravora Group. I was careful to include only work that was definitively mine, but the portfolio clearly demonstrated the depth of my strategic thinking and analytical capabilities. 2 days later, I received a call requesting an interview. The call from Sunvale Studios came on a Thursday morning while I was reviewing quarterly sales reports in my cubicle. The voice on the other end belonged to Director Margaret Foster, head of merchandising strategy for the fastest-growing retail chain in the Southeast. Her tone was professional, but warm, as she explained that my application had caught their attention. "Your portfolio demonstrates exactly the kind of innovative thinking we're looking for," she said. "Would you be available for an interview next week?" I glanced around the office, where Tyler was holding court in the break room, regaling a group of colleagues with stories about his strategic breakthrough and his plans for transforming our merchandising approach. The irony was painful. He was literally describing my work to people who had watched me develop it over months. "I would be very interested," I replied, keeping my voice low. "When would be convenient?" We scheduled the interview for the following Tuesday. As I hung up, I felt a surge of excitement mixed with nervousness. Sunvale Studios had been on my radar for months as a company that was disrupting traditional retail with data-driven strategies and innovative customer experiences. Their corporate culture emphasized analytical thinking and rewarded employees who could back up creative ideas with solid research, exactly the kind of environment where my skills would be valued. Over the weekend, I prepared for the interview with the same meticulous attention to detail I brought to my merchandising analysis. I researched Sunvale's recent expansion strategies, analyzed their competitor landscape, and developed preliminary insights about their market positioning. I even created a sample merchandising plan tailored to their brand identity, demonstrating how my analytical approach could drive growth in their target demographics. The interview took place at Sunvale's regional headquarters, a modern glass building that felt worlds apart from Gravora Group's outdated corporate complex. Director Foster met me in the lobby, and I was immediately struck by her directness and intelligence. Unlike the meetings at Gravora Group, where presentations often devolved into political maneuvering, our conversation focused entirely on strategy, data, and results. "I'm particularly interested in your consumer segmentation methodology," Director Foster said, reviewing my portfolio. "The depth of analysis here suggests you understand not just what customers are buying, but why they're making those choices." I walked her through my approach, explaining how I combined traditional demographic data with behavioral analytics to create detailed customer profiles. As I spoke, I could see her genuine engagement with the concepts. She asked follow-up questions that demonstrated she understood the complexity of what I was describing. At Gravora Group, this kind of analysis led to a 20% increase in regional sales, I explained. But I believe the methodology could be even more effective with a company that's willing to move quickly on insights. Director Foster smiled. "That's exactly what we need. We're expanding into 3 new markets over the next 6 months, and we need someone who can develop merchandising strategies that will give us a competitive advantage from day one." The conversation continued for nearly 2 hours, covering everything from inventory optimization to seasonal forecasting. By the end, I knew this was where I belonged. Director Foster concluded the meeting by explaining their compensation package, which included a base salary that was $25,000 higher than my current position at Gravora Group, plus performance bonuses tied directly to measurable results. "I'll be honest with you, Simone," she said as we shook hands. "We've been watching Gravora Group's recent performance, and we're impressed by the strategic initiatives coming out of their merchandising department. We want that kind of thinking on our team." As I drove back to Birmingham, I reflected on the irony of her comment. Sunvale Studios was interested in hiring me because of work that Tyler was now taking credit for at Gravora Group. They had been monitoring the industry impact of strategies I had developed, and they wanted to bring that expertise in-house. The thought of Tyler unknowingly helping me land a better job brought the first genuine smile I had felt in weeks. 3 days after my interview, Director Foster called with an offer that exceeded my expectations. The position was Senior Strategic Analyst, with a direct reporting line to the executive team and responsibility for merchandising strategy across all Sunvale Studios locations. The salary was $30,000 higher than my current position, and the benefits package included stock options that could prove extremely valuable as the company continued its rapid expansion. "We're prepared to offer you the position immediately," Director Foster said. "When would you be able to start?" I asked for the weekend to consider the offer, though I had already made up my mind. This was my opportunity to escape the toxic environment at Gravora Group and join a company that would value my contributions. More importantly, it was a chance to prove that my success hadn't been a fluke or the result of luck. It was the product of genuine strategic thinking and analytical expertise. On Monday morning, I submitted my resignation letter to Director Hamilton. His reaction was exactly what I expected. Surprise, followed by attempts to convince me to stay, followed by barely concealed irritation when I refused to reconsider. "I hope you realize you're making a mistake," he said, leaning back in his chair with a dismissive expression. "Sunvale Studios is still unproven in this market. You're leaving a stable position for an uncertain future." "I appreciate your concern," I replied, maintaining professional composure despite wanting to point out that my stable position had become untenable the moment he promoted Tyler for stealing my work. "But I believe this opportunity aligns better with my career goals." Tyler's reaction was more complex. When he heard about my departure, he actually seemed nervous, perhaps realizing that he would now be expected to generate original strategic insights without my research to rely on. He made several attempts to meet with me before my departure, ostensibly to discuss transition planning, but clearly hoping to extract more ideas he could use after I left. "I hate to see you go," he said during one of these conversations. "We made such a great team. Are you sure there's nothing Gravora Group can do to keep you?" The audacity of his statement was breathtaking. We had never been a team. I had been his unwitting research assistant while he positioned himself to take credit for my work. But I simply smiled and redirected the conversation to practical transition matters. My last 2 weeks at Gravora Group were enlightening in ways I hadn't expected. Without me to provide analytical support, Tyler's limitations became apparent to anyone paying attention. His follow-up presentations lacked the depth and insight that had characterized the holiday merchandising strategy, and I noticed Director Hamilton starting to ask more pointed questions about Tyler's methodologies. During my final week, I received an unexpected visit from Bethany Coleman, one of the senior analysts who had always been supportive of my work. She closed my cubicle and spoke in low tones. "I want you to know that some of us saw what really happened with that presentation," she said. "Tyler has been trying to replicate your analysis methods for his new projects, but he clearly doesn't understand the underlying principles. It's becoming obvious that he didn't develop that strategy himself." Her words were validating, but they also highlighted a larger problem at Gravora Group. The company culture allowed people like Tyler to succeed through appropriation rather than innovation, while systematically undervaluing the contributions of people like me. My departure wasn't just about escaping one bad situation. It was about refusing to enable a system that rewarded theft over talent. On my last day, I cleaned out my desk while Tyler watched from his office, probably wondering if I would leave behind any research he could use for future presentations. My first month at Sunvale Studios exceeded every expectation I had harbored about the position. The company culture was everything Director Foster had promised: collaborative, data-driven, and focused on results rather than politics. I was given immediate access to the resources I needed to develop comprehensive merchandising strategies, and my recommendations were implemented quickly, rather than being subjected to endless committee reviews. Within 3 weeks, I had completed a detailed analysis of Sunvale's expansion opportunities and identified several key markets where we could gain significant competitive advantages. My research revealed that our primary competitors, including Gravora Group, were following outdated merchandising models that failed to account for changing consumer preferences and demographic shifts. The most interesting discovery came when I analyzed Gravora Group's recent performance in markets where Sunvale Studios was considering expansion. Despite Tyler's promotion and his supposed strategic leadership, their quarterly results showed declining sales in 2 of their 3 most important regions. The holiday merchandising strategy that had been so successful under my guidance was failing in its implementation, suggesting that Tyler lacked the analytical skills necessary to adapt the approach to changing market conditions. Director Foster was particularly interested in this analysis. During our weekly strategy meetings, she often asked for my insights about competitor weaknesses and market opportunities. Her questions helped me understand that Sunvale Studios wasn't just interested in competing with established retailers. They were actively seeking to disrupt the entire industry through superior strategic thinking. "Your analysis suggests that Gravora Group is vulnerable in several key markets," she said during one of these meetings. "Do you think their recent strategic initiatives will improve their competitive position?" I chose my words carefully, not wanting to appear vindictive while still providing honest professional assessment. Based on the data I've reviewed, their current approach lacks the analytical rigor necessary to maintain market share against more agile competitors. Their strategies seem to be based on outdated assumptions about consumer behavior. What I didn't mention was that those strategies were based on my original research, but Tyler's incomplete understanding of the underlying principles was leading to poor execution. He had the surface-level presentation skills to impress executives, but he lacked the deep analytical foundation necessary to adapt strategies to changing market conditions. As my second month at Sunvale Studios began, I was assigned to lead a project that would have significant implications for both companies. Director Foster asked me to develop a comprehensive supplier partnership strategy that would give us competitive advantages in key product categories. The project required extensive research into supplier relationships, contract negotiations, and market positioning, exactly the kind of complex analytical work I excelled at. During my research, I discovered that several of Gravora Group's most important suppliers were becoming frustrated with the company's inconsistent strategic direction and declining sales performance. One supplier in particular, Bright Hollow Labs, had been expressing concerns about their partnership with Gravora Group and was actively seeking alternative retail partners for their premium product lines. Bright Hollow Labs manufactured high-end home goods and seasonal merchandise that represented nearly 15% of Gravora Group's total inventory value. Losing this supplier would create significant gaps in their product offerings and force them to find alternative sources at potentially higher costs. More importantly, if a competitor gained exclusive access to Bright Hollow's products, it would represent a substantial competitive advantage. I spent several days developing a comprehensive proposal for partnering with Bright Hollow Labs, outlining how Sunvale Studios' analytical approach to merchandising could maximize the value of their product lines. The proposal included detailed market analysis, consumer preference data, and projected sales figures that demonstrated our ability to effectively promote and sell their merchandise. The proposal was compelling enough that Director Foster authorized me to reach out to Bright Hollow Labs directly to explore a potential partnership. The call to Bright Hollow Labs came on a Tuesday morning in March, exactly 2 quarters after I had left Gravora Group. I had spent weeks preparing for this conversation, developing a partnership proposal that highlighted Sunvale Studios' analytical capabilities and growth trajectory. When I reached Director of Business Development Patricia Weatherby, her response was immediately enthusiastic. "We've been watching Sunvale Studios' expansion with great interest," she said. "Your growth metrics are impressive, and we're always looking for retail partners who understand the strategic value of premium merchandise." I walked her through our consumer analysis, explaining how our demographic research had identified significant opportunities in the home goods market that traditional retailers were missing. The conversation flowed naturally from market analysis to partnership possibilities, and within 30 minutes, we had scheduled an in-person meeting for the following week. What made the conversation particularly satisfying was Patricia's unprompted commentary about their current retail partnerships. Without any prompting from me, she began expressing frustration with Gravora Group's recent performance and strategic direction. "Our partnership with Gravora Group has become increasingly challenging," she explained. "Their merchandising decisions seem disconnected from market realities, and their sales performance has been disappointing across multiple product categories. We're concerned that their strategic leadership doesn't understand our customer base." I listened carefully, asking thoughtful questions about their specific concerns, while avoiding any direct criticism of my former employer. Instead, I focused on how Sunvale Studios' approach differed from traditional retail strategies, emphasizing our data-driven decision-making and customer-focused merchandising. The partnership we're envisioning would be built on analytical insights rather than intuition, I explained. "We believe that understanding consumer behavior at a granular level is essential for maximizing the value of premium products like yours." Patricia's enthusiasm was evident as we discussed potential collaboration models. By the end of the call, she had committed to presenting our proposal to Bright Hollow's executive team and expressed optimism about moving forward quickly. As I hung up the phone, I realized that this conversation represented more than just a business opportunity for Sunvale Studios. It was the beginning of Tyler's comeuppance for stealing my work and Director Hamilton's reckoning for promoting incompetence over excellence. The strategic thinking they had dismissed was about to cost them their most valuable supplier relationship. The partnership agreement with Bright Hollow Labs was finalized 6 weeks later, and the announcement sent shockwaves through the retail industry. Sunvale Studios gained exclusive access to Bright Hollow's premium product lines, while Bright Hollow gained a retail partner capable of sophisticated market analysis and strategic merchandising. For Gravora Group, the loss represented a devastating blow to their inventory strategy and financial projections. Bright Hollow's products had generated millions in revenue annually, and replacing that inventory would require finding alternative suppliers at significantly higher costs. More importantly, losing exclusive access to popular premium brands would make it difficult for Gravora Group to compete in the high-margin market segments that were becoming increasingly important to retail profitability. I learned about Gravora Group's reaction through industry contacts and former colleagues who reached out after the announcement. According to Bethany Coleman, who still worked there, the executive team was in crisis mode, trying to understand how they had lost such an important supplier relationship. Director Hamilton had apparently demanded a full investigation into the circumstances surrounding Bright Hollow's departure, and Tyler was tasked with developing a strategy to win back the partnership. The irony was perfect. Tyler was being asked to solve a problem that his incompetence had helped create, using analytical skills he had never actually possessed. "The whole situation is a disaster," Bethany told me during a coffee meeting. "Tyler keeps presenting these elaborate plans to win back suppliers, but they're all surface-level presentations without any real analytical foundation. It's becoming obvious to everyone that he doesn't understand the strategic principles he claims to have developed." Meanwhile, at Sunvale Studios, the Bright Hollow partnership was generating immediate results. Our first quarter with their products exceeded projections by 18%, validating both our consumer analysis and our merchandising strategies. Director Foster was so pleased with the results that she authorized expansion of my team and increased my budget for supplier development initiatives. The success was professionally satisfying, but the personal vindication was even sweeter. Every percentage point of growth represented proof that my analytical methods were sound and my strategic thinking was valuable. Tyler might have received credit for my work at Gravora Group, but the results spoke for themselves about who truly understood retail merchandising strategy. As I reflected on the transformation of my career over the past 8 months, I realized that Tyler's betrayal had ultimately been a gift. His theft had forced me to leave a toxic environment and find a company that valued my contributions. His incompetence was now proving, in the most public way possible, that he had never been capable of the strategic thinking he claimed to possess. Looking ahead, I knew this was just the beginning of both my success at Sunvale Studios and the challenges facing Tyler and Director Hamilton at Gravora Group. They had chosen politics over performance, and the market was about to teach them the true cost of that decision. In the end, talent had won over theft, and strategic thinking had triumphed over superficial charm, exactly as it should be in any industry that rewards actual competence.